All right, my apologies, family. Over here just typing away. You're probably looking at me like, what's this dude doing? Hold on for one moment. Just give me 1 second. I was trying to get somebody up in here, but y'all know how that go. All right, family. What's up? What's up? All right, let me see if somebody's gonna join in. Hold on for 1 second. Hold on, y'all. I got y'all. Give me 1 second. Somebody else done checking out again. This is crazy. All right. We definitely gonna get back to our regularly scheduled program. I want to say Shabbat Shalom to the family out there that's keeping the Sabbath. Some of y'all completed your Yom Kippur earlier this week. Some of y'all about to enter into your Hag Sukkot, your Feast of Tabernacles. So those of you who are still keeping these feast days as a memorial unto Yah, much love and respect to y'all for doing that. You know, when I'm celebrating the feast days, it's not anytime soon. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna read you guys the read for y'all the schedule for the feast days. So just give me 1 second. Let me get it. Let me get it for y'all 1 second. So I had put it down in here. Where is it at? Hold on, give me a second. I got it. Nope. There we go. Oh, here we go. All right. So the trumpets is going to be September 25th, which is going to be this Tuesday. There's going to be trumpets, and that is a set apart day. So no work during the day on Tuesday. Day of Atonement is going to be October 4th. That's a Thursday. And no work should be done on that day as well. For those of you who are interested in keeping it according to the sacerdotal menological model, the pre-exilic version that we keep here at KHM. Feast of Tabernacles is October 9th to the 15th. The 9th, which is a Tuesday. Again, the Shabbaton, or the diminutive suffix on Shabbat, means a smaller portion of something, and that is the day portion of the 7th day, which is called the Shabbat because it incorporates the rest period into it. And that's when we're done with the weekly Sabbath. But when we go and do with the feast days, they also have a similar Shabbaton, where there's a portion of the day where the work is not done. Right. And then the last great day, which is October 16th, which is also the Feast of Ingathering, is on October 16th, and that is also on a Tuesday, and there's no work done on that day. Now, KHM, we don't keep the Feast of Dedication or anything like that. We only keep what the Most High laid out in Torah. If you decide you want to keep it, that's on you guys. But again, to those of you who are keeping the feast days, much love and respect to y'all for doing that. Again, it's a memorial unto the Most High, and it's a great reminder of the redemption process in which he's doing on behalf of Israel, right? It's a great reminder for that. All right. So let's see who's up in here. Shout out to Yeriah Ben Yashrael, Feathered Hebrew, True Israelite. Yeriah says he's from Colombia. Colombia, as in Columbia, South Carolina, or Colombia as in the country in South America? Let me know. Shout out to my brother Bezaliel, Yisrael, Jeremy Harris, Barzilai Avshalom, Shamar Yah, Debuk, Henry Dixon, Honor Entertainment, Get Wise. Let's see who else. The Shepherd, Yoel Ben Yisrael, Ivri, Ya'ar's Ra'elite, Yehuda, Hebrew, Israelite, Judah, Shalom. My brother Yishamor in the building, Cheryl. Peace, peace to your family. Shalom, shalom. We're going to get it in. We're going to get it in. This is really interesting. Seems a lot of people be calling me out, but nobody wants to join in the discussion. Gary said he's from South America. That's what's up. That's what's up. He said Spanish is his native language. That's what's up. That's what's up. Shalom to you, Ak. Thank you for joining in, man. Shout out to my brother Clear Thoughts in the building. Shalom. Yashab Awam. And I think that's everybody that I can see for right now. So make sure you share this link. Let's get more and more people in here. I'm going to try to go into some information for y'all. I don't know what. But I'll pull something out the hat and I'll share it with y'all. And again, if anybody wants to join in on the discussion on the platform, let me know. I'll bring you in on a panel and we can build. All right. All right. So I think we Gucci up in here, man. So the dude that I was supposed to, he wants to debate me, right? This is incredible, man. It's, you know, a lot of people, interestingly enough, they just want to debate, right? And then when you set everything up, they just don't show up, right? Which is extremely disheartening and very disappointing and very frustrating too, especially when you set everything up and you're prepared to have a discussion and people flake on you. Okay. Okay. Shout out to Corey King in the building. True Israelite, I don't know. I have no clue. I guess it would depend on what they identify as. You know, biologically, I would look at the hormonal imbalance in the body and measure the testosterone, androgen, and estrogen levels. And, you know, you're always going to have an imbalance, and that imbalance will determine which gender role that they will be assuming for the most part. So that's a great question. And again, I really have not really researched that as it pertains to the scripture. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty reasonable question, but I would have to go much further into that before I can speak definitively, at least from my position on that. Let me see. Let's see. Can you speak on the connection between the Aborigines of America and the tribes? I would be indebted forever. Well, Honor Entertainment, I've touched on that in the past. I've never did an open lesson or session on that yet, because there's actually some good information out there that some people in the community has put out. And yeah, Jeremy, that's a good idea. I'm gonna start doing that. If they're willing to do it. You know what I'm saying? They may just forfeit, you know what I mean, the deposit. But I mean, it is what it is, man. I don't bite. You feel what I'm saying? I'm not rude, I'm not disrespectful. I mean, you'll get equal amount of time to speak like I would on my platform. I mean, I've definitely put this out there for people to understand that. They just have to go back and look at the channel and they can see that. You know what I'm saying? So today I'm just really in a laid back mood today. If y'all didn't already tell. I know y'all want me to probably turn up. I might, depending on information I put out. The last video I did on Craig, Craig Lewis, man, X Ministries. You know, a lot of people like that video. And I had some people from KHM share it with X Ministries. And they said they declined to have a discussion and or a debate. And that's not what the ministry's focus is, and this, and that. And just remind you of the playground, you know, when you have a child come and hit another child when nobody's looking. And then that child that got hit, you know, he starts chasing the other child and, you know, about to hit him. And then, you know, parents see it and they intervene. And like, why are you trying to hit him? And why are you chasing him? He's like, but he hit me first, you know, that type of stuff. And that small child was going to the parent and say, no, stop him from hitting me. That's exactly what's going on, man. They want to put out information, but they do not want to be challenged on it. So, I mean, it is what it is. But it's all good. You know, I personally like to talk to pastors in the Black churches in regards to these subject matters, because I think it's good as far as relation. You know, I really did not like his statement, his ending statement, because it was very pejorative, right? But I mean, it is what it is. All right, family. So the Aborigines thing, there's a documentary out that some brothers put out a couple of years ago, and it's called Despierta Mi Gente, right? And you guys can definitely do a YouTube search for that. Look up Mala Ak of AOC if you want to get the DVD on that. I'm gonna reach out to him and see if I can do if I can play some of the footage from it on my channel. So I'm gonna reach out for him, see if he gives me the okay to do so, and I can share some of that information for you guys and give my critique on it. But that's that. On entertainment, I mean, I don't even know, but you know, some people inquire about it. So Matthew Lewis, shout out to him with Matthew Lewis in the building. Yeah, so my brother's over there at Rebirth Hebrew Nation building did an excellent documentary responding to Craig Lewis. Y'all go check that out. You know, go to Rebirth Hebrew Nation building channel, subscribe to it, and you'll see they got the documentary premiere on there where they were responding back to Craig Lewis. They did an excellent job. Me, I just did a freestyle, and I purposely did the freestyle because I would have liked for Craig Lewis or a representative from his ministry to reach out and say, hey, you know, we'll do a sit-down discussion and or debate on this. And that's why I was just freestyling, just throwing some stuff out there. And obviously they don't want to do it. And they was reached out to personally and they just declined. So unfortunately, that's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying? That's definitely not going to happen. But it's all good. It's all good. So yeah. So Corey says, Shalom was wondering what's your take on demon possession in the New Testament. In regards to demon possession, there's a lot that needs to be studied in the interim periods from Malachi and Mattiyahu. And you'll see where this idea of demon possession actually comes from and how it entered into the Hebraic culture and, you know, worldview. You know, the Israelites were really, we're talking about Iron Age 1, Iron Age 2 Israelites, were really seeing things as it pertains to protective spirits. Now, these protective spirits, you know, they labeled as various things in regards to their origin. Some people subscribe to them being part of the Nephilim that died in the 10% whose spirits lived on. Some of them are the the student, I would say the representatives or ambassadors for the divine council. Some of them become local deities of ancestors who passed on and they're worshipped after they died, and they become an egregore. Same thing with thought forms and the hive mind mentality, you know what I'm saying, where people just get around a thought or an idea or something and bring something into existence, you know what I'm saying, draws energy into it and brings it into existence, and or a spirit will assume that role. So remember, we went through the word for demon, shadim, and we went to the Syrian word for it as well. And we saw that it means a protecting spirit, because that's what it is. But it's a spirit that protects another people. So when one person decides that they want to engage in the spiritual worship of another entity over another person or people, group or tribe or chiefdom or a nation or kingdom or empire, etc., then you have to be very careful, because you have abdicated the jurisdiction of your patron deity over you, and exchange it for the deity of another culture, right? And that deity of the other culture is not obligated to do much for you. You know what I'm saying? So if it decides it wants to use you for whatever kind of adversarial reasons or purposes, you've just yielded yourself over to it. And there are a lot of just unseen forces that interact with us daily and interact on the real world daily. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, when it comes to the New Testament, you'll see where, you know, people are being demon possessed and being overtaken and do things like cutting themselves. And sometimes people chain them up and do a lot of things. And you see Yahusha and his disciples, and then later his apostles, they go and they cast out these spirits and things of that nature. So the origin of those demons, we don't have a lot of information as far as the text is concerned. Some people attribute it to Satan, which just means an adversary. Which adversary was it? We never get the name of the adversary in the Brit Hadashah, or the so-called New Testament, that's dispatching all of these demons. For all we know, it could be Yah. We went over this before in one of the live streams, and I showed you that Yah is the one that dispatches these spirits. I mean, we see in the book of Melachim, where, you know, he's asking who wants to be a lion spirit in the mouth of these false prophets. And, you know, there was someone on the left, someone on the right, and they all speaking, and one stood up and volunteered, and Yah sent them. You know what I'm saying? So we have textual data in regards to, at least in certain scenarios, that Yah puts forth a request and it's honored from the council, right? Or those who are in the midst of the council, and they go and they do his bidding. So those things could have been done purposely, because that person being overtaken by a spirit is obviously operating outside of the scope of their cultural patron deity, and therefore they have left themselves open and available for other deities to take over and control. But a lot of times those who are Israelites, or those who have clinged unto Israel and subscribed to the patron deity of Yod He Wav, they are invoking his protection. This is why when you see theophoric names, right, which are names that have the deity's name in the personal name, like Yeshayahu, you know what I'm saying, that's Isaiah, you know what I'm saying, whenever you see that in there, that's indicative that that individual is invoking an attribute of the patron deity whose name they possess. And that's also important, because when that name is called, it invokes that deity's attribute, and as it pertains to that individual and whatever that individual's assignment is. This is why names are important. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I'm just looking at what you got in there. Shout out to Honor Entertainment in the building, man. Peace to the brother in the building, man. Just chilling. All right. So I was just going over that just briefly, just freestyling that. If anybody in the chat wants to join the panel, have a dialogue, let me know. I'll let you in the chat. Just let me know. I'm also trying to monitor this to see if anybody else wants to join in. All right. So I had a I was supposed to have a discussion with somebody yesterday as well. Those of you who follow me on Facebook, um, you're bore witness to the fact that the individual did not show up for the discussion, and this always happens. And you know, he was just putting out some false meme scholarship out, and I was going back and forth with him in regards to it, and invited him to a discussion because I typically do that. I don't like to just talk about somebody without giving them an invite to defend their position. But when they forfeited that opportunity, then I mean, you giving me leeway to speak on it. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I don't do any personal attacks, anything like that. I just deal with the information that's being put out. So unfortunately, that person just decided that they was not going to show up at all, and they've been silent after that video on Facebook, which is really interesting. All right, so hold on real quick. Shout out to the chosen few in the building. Okay. All right, I'm just trying to see what y'all are saying right now. So I see your questions, the questions you're putting out. So I'm trying to grab them, so that way I can respond to them. And again, family, share this video, man. See, when I'm not turned up, a lot of people don't tune in. Y'all like when I turn up. Y'all like when I try to invite somebody, have a discussion. Y'all like that type of stuff. But I'm gonna do a future, session. I'm just gonna prepare like lessons or teachings or just things. The reason why I don't do it is because it's called Freestyle Friday. I like it to be organic and just flow. Whatever comes to mind, whatever we talk and discuss, I give y'all an opportunity to have a discussion and we can edify each other. You know what I'm saying? That's why I call it Freestyle Friday. Anytime I come prepared, it may still be Freestyle Friday, or sometimes it may have a different title in it, depending upon what the subject matter is, and what it is that I want to address or the request I get to address. But here I'm looking at the questions y'all are leaving. So Coy Walker, shout out to Coy Walker in the building. He says, Shalom Aki, do you have any knowledge on the Hebraic calendar change made during the 3rd, 4th century, if I'm not mistaken, by a man named Hillel II? Yes. Shout out to the Black Av one in the building. Yes, I do. Coy, I have a entire lecture series on that, and I show the model that Hillel II utilized in order to determine the feast days in captivity and being scattered, because this was the last Sanhedrin council before those Israelites or those Yahudim were scattered or exposed out of Palestine. And they wanted to create a model so that way they know what days the feast days fall on, when the calendar starts, when to start the count for the days. You have to make sure that Passover doesn't fall on a certain day, etc. So yes, I have an entire lesson I did on that. So let me put the video in the chat for you. I put the video in the chat so you can check it out. Just give me 1 second. All right. So let me grab it right here. Nope, that's not it. This is it right here. Okay, I'm gonna drop it in the chat. You're welcome anytime, man. I'll drop it in the chat. So go ahead and that's it right there. Check it out. Check it out. Check it out. All right. So was Moses' use of Egyptian mysteries considered sacrilegious? When you say use of Egyptian mysteries, what mysteries are you referring to? When you say mysteries? Because if you're going back to the scriptures where it says that Moses was learned in all the ways of the Egyptians, and when you say mysteries, what mysteries are you referring to? Because this gets into the epistemological data that would have been available to Moses, of what he would have known, and that is really based on the chronology of Moses' existence, Moshe's existence, and where you place him in the timeline. And that will determine what he would have been trained on, right? Where he was groomed at, which nome did he grow up in? What was the deity of that region, overseeing that region? Who was the Nasbiti that was in control at that time? Or was, Kemet in disarray, because there's several times where we have these intermediate periods when the kingdom is divided. So it would depend, because we can talk whether we're talking about Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, Late Kingdom, and after Late Kingdom. You know what I'm saying? So it depends on who was in control, what deity did they esteem. It could be based on what literature was being written at that time, what was the political and economic stresses that affected, or persuaded the community at that time. So if you give me a time period, I can kind of give you an idea of what was going on in the minds of the people at that time, and the knowledge that would have been known to the priests and or the administration and or the Nasbiti, who was the king of Kemet at that time, unified Kemet. If we're talking about a time period where Kemet was unified. If you're talking about one of the intermediate periods, then that can vary, because you have a situation where the second intermediate period, where the Hyksos ruled, and in the third intermediate period, the Meshwesh ruled. So it would depend on the timeline that you would actually put them in. And there's also, and I shared this before, there's also interesting information in regards to the splitting of the Red Sea, and how the Egyptians believed that you can use a spell to part the water. And we have that in a piece of literature where a spell was used to split the water, because actually I should probably read that for you. So you said right before Exodus, but what's your time frame for Exodus? What's the time frame you have for Exodus? Yes, he's talking about turning the staff into a snake. Now, and this is the thing. This is why I try to show people that the Exodus account with Moshe is demonstrative of other deities existing. And because these other deities obviously were about the best way to say it, there's politics in Shamaim, right? And the Most High, who we call El Elyon, he's in control of the council, right? He's over the council. He's in control of the council. He created the council, right? But there are some times where attempts are made where people violate certain things and they have to be judged, right? Even matter of fact, let me show you some scripture right here. Let me show you something real quick. Let's get for you a scripture from the book of Job. Okay. So let's go to Job chapter 15, verse 15. Right. Job chapter 15, verse 15. Right. So Job chapter 15, verse 15 says, Hen bik so lo yahamim we samayim lo zaku benal. Right. So when we translate that, I'm going to use the New American Standard Bible to translate that. When we translate that, he says, behold, he puts no trust in his holy ones, and the heavens are not pure in his sight. How much, and then verse 16 says, how much less man who is vile and corrupt, who drinks injustice like water. And then it goes to say in Job 4:18, if God puts no trust in his servants and he charges his angels with error. How do you charge your angels with error? How much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundations are in the dust, who can be crushed like a moth? Can a mortal be more righteous than God, or a man more pure than his maker? So we get an understanding from this time period that they're saying that, the Most High doesn't even trust his servants. He doesn't even see his angels as being perfect. He charged them with error. That's interesting. So again, that goes in alignment with what I was just saying. This is why I'm telling you guys that henotheism is the pre-exilic worldview of the ancient Israelites. And when I say ancient Israelites, we're talking from the 15th century BCE all the way to the 6th century BCE. Now, when we get into Iron Age 2, we see a split between these federation of tribes where you have some towards the north and some towards the south. The north calling Israel, with the capital region being Samaria, and in the south where their capital region is Jerusalem, right? But the point that I'm trying to make is during the time of Moshe, where the Most High says, I'm going to render judgment against the Elohim of Mithraim. He's going to render judgment against them. And these same entities were the ones that was empowering these priests in ancient Kemet to turn their staffs into snakes. Matter of fact, they replicated some of the plagues too. How is this possible? Are you saying that Yah was the one that did all of these things, and then when he told, Moshe that, oh, well, I'm going to judge the gods of Egypt, what judgment are you rendering against the gods if these guys don't exist? But obviously, some deities were empowering these priests to turn these staffs into snakes. There's spells for this. There's spells for this. If you study ancient Kemetic literature, you'll see they have spells for almost everything. Everything. So there were spells where they could part the sea. There were spells where they can turn staffs to snakes. There were spells where they can resurrect the dead. These are spells that ancient Egyptians had and they knew of. And they have it in their literature. Okay. Corey, email me. There you go. Send me an email, Corey. All right? Email me. Okay. Shalom to Navia, Yashrael in the building, Kokab, Tafari in the building. Thank you for joining us. Kokab is drawing that from the book of Enoch, because the book of Enoch is also in the Ethiopian canon of the Bible. So this is where he draws his worldview from. This is why you see him making those comments in regards to that. All right. So when we're saying that Moses used spells, well, you got to understand what a spell is, right? A spell doesn't work without the intervention of a supernatural entity. So anytime these spells are cast, an entity is invoked to perform the task, because mortal man cannot do these things, right? And this was something that was well known in ancient Kemet. This is not a secret. So when we talk about Moses using the staff that he had, and the staff, what a fetish is when an object is revered for something, right? In times in regards to indigenous cultures, right? Or an object, it could be a talisman, right? Where it's an object that has special powers or magical powers or stuff like that, right? Just like when you watch Harry Potter and they have the wand, and the wand, they're doing all these things with the wand. The staff that Moses had, his staff was imbued with energy by Yah, where he was able to use it to perform various tasks, like striking the rock and having water flow out. According to the literature, he, split the Red Sea. The Israelites crossed over. According to the literature, he threw it down and turned into a snake and devoured the other snakes. And every time he would stretch it out, he would perform a plague, right? So again, it would be considered a spell to people that's outside of the understanding on how things operated in times in past. It was really more spiritually inclined than we are today. I mean, we've been pushed so much into the realm of technology and science that we have lost our indigenous culture as it pertains to invoking the supernatural energy from, powers that are greater than us, that are outside of our realm of existence. You know what I'm saying? So, well, you're saying spell casting. I'm not saying it's spell casting per se. You have to define what a spell is. Like I said, a spell, and mind you, we're looking at it. You got to see what a matter of fact. Let's look it up. Let's look it up. So that way we could put things in its proper context, right? So give me 1 second. Hold on, real quick. All right, I'm back. My bad. I had to take care of something real quick. All right, so all right, hold on. So what I was trying to do was get the etymology of the word spell, right? So I pull up the etymology of the word spell just so that way we understand what it is we're talking about. So you can go to online etymology dictionary, right? Spell as a noun, Old English spell, story, saying, tale, history, narrative, fable, discourse, command. From Proto-Germanic spellen, right? Compare Old Saxon spell, Old North spajal, Old High German spell, Gothic spill, report, discord, tale, fable, myth. All right. German bspiel, example from c. circa 1200, as utterance, something said, right? A statement, remark, meaning a set of words with supposed magical or occult powers, incantation, charm, first recorded in the 1570s. Hence, any means or cause of enchantment. The term spell generally used for magical procedures which cause harm or force people to do something against their will, unlike charms for healing, protection, etc. This is why I said that I wouldn't really call it a spell. Okay. But what I'm saying is the staff that he used to perform all the things that he did was imbued with some kind of supernatural power by the deity in which he was performing on behalf of. And again, this is something that would not have been foreign to the Egyptians, right? As we can see from the literature itself, it gives us the example when the Egyptian priests casted their staffs down and turned them into snakes, and they also replicated at least 3 of the plagues. All right. Shout out to my brother Chris in the building, the Most High Child. Question: NASB or KJV? Which translation is better? New American Standard Bible is superior in regards to comparing it with the KJV. The KJV is not that bad, but it is pretty dated. It is really dated, right? The New American Standard Bible is a more of a critical edition Bible. It has more footnotes. It has a better preface to show you what the translation method that was used when they put the text together. It is something that has went through a lot of rigor in regards to examining various manuscripts that was not available to the King James council when they were doing their translation. So the New American Standard Bible is also a formal equivalency translation like the KJV, which means that the translators, their goal was to try and translate the text word for word as much as possible. Right. But the NASB is definitely a more superior Bible than the KJV. It's not my favorite per se. It's really good. I like it. I like the NASB. I like the ESV. I also like the Stone Edition translation and JPV translation as well. But I think probably the best, I don't know if I'm gonna say the best one, but one of the ones that's highly preferred is the ESV. The Bible that I recommend for people to get is the ESV translation and uses the academic standard and our manuscript that is based off the majority text that is used by academia, and that's what they translate for the ESV as well. So the ESV, I would say, is probably going to be one of the top Bibles out there. The Schofield Study Bible of 1908, 1909, that is strictly where you get your dispensationalist ideology from, which I used to subscribe to when I was a Christian a while ago. And this is where you get this idea of spiritual Israel and physical Israel and the dealing with both. And again, Schofield's teacher was influenced by John Nelson Darby. So when you start studying that, and Margaret McDonald and her dream, 15-year-old with a dream of what would later be developed into what's called the rapture ideology, that study Bible, I don't prefer it. I've read it, I have it, and I have all his notes from it, because when I was a Christian, I used to read it, and that's where a lot of the ideology came from the church that I was going to. But I don't recommend that. I'm surprised that even came up in a discussion, unless somebody in here believes in dispensationalism and they want to have a discussion on that. But anyway, nonetheless, yeah, anytime, no problem, man. So Yoel Ben Yisrael, D-Joke, it's like a talesman, right? So Yoel says, why do you think people look at the Messiah as if he is God? You have to study the development of the Christology. There's a lot of material on this. I did a lecture on this and I shared this, but I'll share it again. The lecture I did when I speak about this. So let me put this in here so y'all can check it out. There you go. So Kokab Tafari, when you say a lot of people reference it, what demographic are you referring to? Are you referring to dispensationalists? That's probably what you're referring to, people who subscribe to the rapture theory, physical Israel, spiritual Israel. So the rapture theory, that deals with eschatology, and says that the believers in Christ, the church, they're going to be raptured up, while Israel is left to be judged, and the nations who help Israel, when the Messiah comes back, they will also be rewarded, right? And then you have the judgment seat, and then you have the great white throne, and the various judgments that are done in those two situations, and the 7-year gap in between, 3.5 years of peace, 3.5 years of just torture, and all types of malice and everything like that. So I at one time subscribed to that. I no longer hold to that at all. So the only demographic that I know of that holds to Scofield's Bible are people who are dispensationalists. You know what I'm saying? Because he's the one that introduced that theology into American culture, right? Prior to that, it was in Europe, and then he's the one that introduced it made it popular in American culture. All right. Shout out to my brother Yanib Yasharala in the building. So you can definitely click on that link, Yoel, and you'll see the development of Christology, right? On how people viewed who's called Christ, right? And it started out with a low view, and then Paul, he ratcheted up to a high Christological view, based on the audience that he was speaking to. He pretty much tailored his message for the audience in which he spoke to. And the other Israelites, according to the literature, what they taught was something that was relatable to their community. But then we see what's called Jewish Christians, and a lot of them, they was really focused on the message more than the miracles, right? And Yahusha, to them, he was born with a union between Yosef and Miriam. Sexual union between them two. He was the offshoot of them. This is what these Jewish Christians believe. Some of them also seen Paul as an apostate, as somebody that was, drawing people away from the law, in their view. So they believe that he was somebody that mastered Torah by means of being imbued with the Ruach HaKodesh to do so. That his death was a result of him being martyred for a cause. So they had what would be considered a low Christological view, as opposed to somebody that believes that Jesus Christ is the second person in the Trinity. If you're a Trinitarian, but there's some people who don't subscribe to, being a Trinitarian, and they are part of the oneness group, where they believe that we have different manifestations as opposed to different persons, right? So some people believe he's God because that notion was introduced into the Messianic movement by Gentiles, by means of their Greco-Roman culture and the things that they understood as far as a demigod and demigods, rescuing and saving people, right? But if we trace this notion back, we'll see that the emphasis of the Messiah concept comes from Judah, right? And the reason for this is because the text itself is written from the vantage point of the southern tribes for the most part, right? And when we see it written from the vantage points of the southern tribes, emphasis is placed on the Davidic throne as being the means of redemption in which Yah is going to save his people. He's going to raise up a righteous branch from the seed of David that's going to redeem Israel out of the hands of their captors and those who are attacking them. That is the perspective of the southern tribes. Remember, the priests and the scribes most of them were in Judah, right, in the south, and they were definitely in contact with the king. So you're going to definitely see a lot of the text favoring Judah, and why you see more favor given to the kings of Judah as opposed to the kings of Israel, which is interesting because Israel, based on their geographical location and the trade in which they practice in their geographical location towards the north, was actually more wealthy than the south. And you'll know this because if you look at the topography, the geography, the climate, and also the trades, you'll know who was more wealthy than the other. And depending upon the type of wealth that you have, it's going to determine your worldview. It's going to determine your vantage point. You know what I'm saying? So this is why it's important for us to take into account when we're looking at this type of situation, to understand that all of this influences the writers when they write. Okay. And once you understand that this influences the writers when they write, you'll know what their agenda is when they're putting together the corpus of the text. There's a book that I recommend for y'all to read. I'm going to show it to you right now. And the reason why I'm showing you this book is because it's going to show you that what is the techniques that is applied to the Tanakh that leads us to the conclusion that the Tanakh itself was not written by one person. There's multiple books, but there's multiple revisions, because we know there's many authors, then there's many revisions, redactors, and there's other things that's inserted that interrupts the flow of certain passages. I mean, when you study the text, you know that the way that we have it today is not the original autographs, right? We have enough of the essence of the original autographs in there because we were able to test the textual transmission veracity over time, looking at the Septuagint, Dead Sea Scrolls, all the way to the Masoretic text. And we can see that they agree a lot, which means that the transmission of the text itself, whether it's by writing or whether it's orally, is excellent. So we can safely assume that that textual transmission also was equally as excellent over the course of 1,000 years prior to us having what we call the Dead Sea Scrolls, all right, which would lead us to the Iron Age 2 period, at the very least, where we get the monarchy, right, the kingdoms when they start to arise. But let me show you this. I'm going to show you this, and I'm going to read for you the conclusion, right? Let me read this for you. I'm gonna read this for you real quick. First, let me show you the book first. Hold on. And it's a pretty lengthy book. All right, it's about 371 pages, right? All right, let me show this to y'all. Hold on. All right, here's the book right here. It's called Linguistic Dating of Biblical Texts. All right, and if we scroll down, it's an excellent read, man. If you get through it, it's excellent. If you're into this type of stuff. Some people may not even be into it, but I'm into this type of stuff, right? So, all right. So let's get to the conclusion. Let me zoom in. All right. No biblical text, including Exodus 15, is particularly close in linguistic form to the language attested in our 2nd millennium BCE sources. An attempt to date any text early on the basis of a linguistic similarity to Amarna, Canaanite, Ugaritic cannot be seriously maintained. We note also that the discussion has concerned itself solely with the poetry of the Pentateuch. If the prose of the Mosaic Pentateuch comes from the 2nd millennium BCE, why is it virtually indistinguishable from prose from a millennium later, like that in the book of Kings? And if you know what Hebrew prose is, then you understand why they're making this juxtaposition, right? So the linguistic contrast with known 2nd millennium sources does not rule out the possibility that the language of the text could still date to the second millennium. We have argued repeatedly in this book that multiple styles of language can exist at the same time. Nevertheless, the language gives no grounds for mounting an argument for such earliness. Robertson, we recall, made no claim that any of the texts was as old as our second millennium sources and dated everything to after 1200 BCE, the period for which we have no externally dated evidence. The argument that the language of the text, of the BH text, is different because they are older than the BH text is possible, but hardly compelling in the absence of other non-linguistic arguments for antiquity. The archaism of the text amounts at best to the repetition of a few archaic forms, chiefly yikmo, right? Preterites whose existence is doubted by some scholars, and the prefix, which is what? Mem, cholam, wav, mo, suffix. Since these forms are attested at all stages of biblical Hebrew poetry, there's no reason why at any time a writer cannot make a stylistic choice to load a poem with a number of them to create a clustering effect. The language of the ABA-BH text cannot demonstrate the antiquity of those texts, nor can the absence of archaic features prove that the text originate from a later date. It is clear that the language of the text, as with all BH texts, has undergone serious modification during scribal transmission. Thus, the language of the current text is only a tenuous link to the language of purported originals. Language, once again, turns out to be a very weak criterion for dating biblical texts. Right? Let's keep going. Hold on. Let's go down. Right? This chapter 13 goes into textual criticism. Right? And let's get past the textual criticism, which is good too, but I'm going to get past that. Let's get to the final conclusion, right? All right. So in volume 2, we will present a history of scholarship on the dating of the biblical books, focusing on the use of linguistic evidence. A new synthesis further detailed case studies of supposed late biblical Hebrew features and a detailed bibliography. The synthesis will draw together the threads of the argument in this volume and argue that seeing the early biblical Hebrew and late biblical Hebrew as two successive chronological phases of biblical Hebrew is incompatible with the evidence. We argue that a better model sees the late biblical Hebrew as merely one style of Hebrew in the Second Temple period and quite possibly First Temple period. Early biblical Hebrew and late biblical Hebrew, therefore, do not represent different chronological periods in the history of biblical Hebrew, but instead represent coexistent styles of literary Hebrew throughout the biblical period. These two general language types, EBH and LBH, are best taken as representing two tendencies among scribes of the biblical period, conservative and non-conservative. The authors and scribes who compose and transmitted works in early biblical Hebrew exhibit a tendency to conservatism, right? And their linguistic choices in the sense that they only rarely use forms outside a narrow core of what they considered literary forms. At the other extreme, the late biblical authors, Hebrew authors, and scribes exhibited a much less conservative attitude, freely adopting a variety of linguistic forms in addition to, not generally instead of, those favored by early biblical Hebrew scribes. Between extreme conservatism, and extreme openness to variety, Ezra, there was a continuum into which other writings may be placed, Ezekiel, the Temple Scroll, etc., etc. All right. So let me get up out of that and give you my summary on it. So when you are analyzing the text and you're seeing how the text is put together, there are certain things that are different fingerprints that stand out to you as somebody that is analyzing the text to know, like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, what is that doing there? Oh, this looks different than this, but is written in the same book. You'll start to see these things, and you'll start to see that, yes, they were original authors, but over time, because of the many revisions and things that had to be placed in because things may have gotten forgotten or gotten lost, you'll see that certain things are not as cohesive as it can be when you're reading the text. And anybody that studies the language of biblical Hebrew, when you're actually going into it, you can see these anomalies, right? And these are things that I like to study. And I like to use a lot of references, resources, and tools to get deeper into my studies to try and figure out what's going on. Emmanuel Tove is another great scholar when it comes to textual criticism of the Tanakh itself. So definitely look up his works, and I've shared it on here before. But pretty much what they're showcasing there is that the earliest that we can date back the biblical text, the earliest books of the text, is to 1200 BCE, which again is on the dawn of the Iron Age 1 period. I put the text in the form that they have it today, or where the originals derive from today. I put that during the monarch period, right? During the monarch period of the kings, right? But the oral tradition that was captured in the social memory of the people was something that was, automatically passed on, verbatim. And this was something that people, children growing up, they were raised with this knowledge, this information, right? And the accuracy of their recalling of this information was extremely important for them to keep these mitzvot, right? So, and the reason why I'm bringing this textual criticism aspect out is because a lot of times when people say that Moses wrote it, Moses may have authored stuff, and he may have written down what we call the statute, laws, and commandments, but the narrative in which they are placed, that was not done by him. That was not authored by him. Somebody took that content and they put it in a narrative, right? Hence why we see Moses' death being spoken of in the book of Deuteronomy, right? I forgot my original point for saying this. Doesn't matter. Bottom line is, I'm trying to give you some insight in regards to the information. Definitely go and get this book and read it for those of you who are really interested on the linguistic dating of the biblical text, what late biblical Hebrew, early biblical Hebrew, and comparing it to Mishnaic Hebrew and other types of Hebrew. And when you're looking to see, like they said, the conservative approach as opposed to the liberal approach, and they see them as contemporary flavors that scribes use as it was putting the text together, you'll see all of these elements when you read this book and you follow along with it to see exactly the point that they're coming to. And textual criticism is definitely something we should embrace. We should not be afraid of it. It does not take away from our culture, right? It may interfere with people who are religious about the text and they believe that the text is perfect. I don't believe the text is perfect. The autographs are perfect. You don't have that, right? We still have the essence of the autographs in what we have today because of the textual transmission and how good it is. But when you see that the text itself is an amalgamation, you'll know that, okay, well, this definitely is not the original because the way it flows gets interrupted. Whether it's an idiom, whether it's an archaic word, whether it's something that just seems awkward, like, well, why is this added in? I'll give you an example. When you read in the book of Bereshit and you see all of a sudden Melchizedek is mentioned out the blue, we're not giving no background information on who this character is, but he just shows up out the blue. That's believed to be a scribal insertion that happened much later on. The book of Bereshit, from my research, was crafted up when the Israelites, most of it was put together when Israelites were in Babylon. And we see that because there's a lot of influence from things that are seen in ancient Babylon. I'll give you an example of that. The Entamanaki, right? So the Israelites, when they were recalling this legend of the Tower of Babel, and they were actually putting it together, when you actually study where the Israelites were at in captivity in relationship to where the historical Entamanaki was at, you'll see exactly where influenced them actually putting the text together, where some of the content came from. That does not mean they plagiarize no, that does not mean it. It just means that there are events that happen in human history, whether they are political events, economic events, climatic events, whether they're environmental events, whether they're famines, whether they're glacial periods where, the ice age is moving or shifting the waters and affecting migrations, and how famines affect migrations. And then you have cultural diffusion and culturation going on. And over time in culturation, all of these things are going on in human history. And when a people who are budding in what's called ethnogenesis, so they're budding out of a whole complex of things that are occurring, and these people are budding out, what they start to do was, in the social memory of the people who capture the oral traditions based on where certain events happen in different parts of the known world at that time, they are culminating together a text in order to form a cultural barrier and an ideological worldview for the generations to come who will be reading this text. It is a way to protect them and say, listen, this is what the other nations have interpreted these events in human history to be, but this is our vantage point of it, and wise and important with the covenant that we have with our patron deity. All right, so shout out to Hebrew Loya in the building, Kwaku Danielle in the building, Bakar Yehuda, Ryan Smith. Let's see who else is up in here. I think I got most everybody that's up in here. Did Moshe write Genesis as everyone says he did, even though he was not born during that time? So the book of Genesis is equated to Moshe. And that happened from my research when the Yahudim came back during Persian captivity to rebuild the temple, the city, and the walls. That book of Genesis, the content that's in there, similar to the form we have today, originates in pen form, in the way it's written, pen form, during that time period, right? And the reason why is because a lot of the similarities that we do see during that time period. Also, there are a lot of anachronisms that are there in the book of Genesis. And if you don't know what an anachronism is, let's look it up. Here it is. Let me bring it out. So an anachronism, an act of attributing a custom event or object to a period to which it does not belong. And a lot of times this was done unintentionally by the scribes who put together the text. An example of that is Ur of the Chaldeans. The Chaldeans did not exist in Ur during the time period in which Abraham existed. If Abraham was living in the Middle Bronze Age period, and we're saying that Ur, which was a city-state in Mesopotamia, the Chaldeans were there. Chaldeans didn't get there to the 9th, 8th century BCE, right? So we're saying that those Chaldeans actually existed in Ur. That's an anachronism. That means that whoever's writing this, and again, if they're in Babylon, they're going to get a lot of this information from where they're at in Babylon. They're collecting information and putting things together so that way they can recall what their ancestors had known and what was revealed to them by the Creator. So you'll see the fact that this recollection of the Entamanaki being attributed to an event that happened during the 2nd millennium BCE period. And remember, that happened after the flood occurred, right? Because, you know, some people say the flood was local. Some people say the flood was global. I say it was a large local flood. I don't subscribe to the world flood model, even though I believe that, you know, there were various ice age periods that brought certain glaciers to certain regions and it melted and it caused certain things to overflow. I do believe that the Earth's atmosphere has not been consistent the way that we see it today. There's been more oxygen in the atmosphere in times past than it is today, which can be attributed to diffusion of oxygen molecules in the atmosphere and or other events that occur, right, that affect the atmosphere. And some people like to attribute that to the flood and why man was not able to live as long as he could have because the oxygen content was much less. And you need a substantial amount of oxygen in a body that can process that much oxygen in order for individual to have a more longer lifespan. Oxygen plays a huge role in your lifespan, but too much oxygen or oxygen that is not balanced. You have an O2 molecule that gets synthesized and used by the body. You have a free radical oxygen molecule that needs to be bonded to and brought out, or otherwise it can cause oxidative damage. This is why you're told to, you know, take antioxidants, right? So the way that the Earth was, the condition and the climate that the Earth was in, the environment the Earth was in, affected the lifespan of people, right? So when we have this situation where we're talking about Ur of Chaldeans, the time period in which this would have been recalled is during the time period in which the 8th or 9th century, when the Chaldeans were that region. So that element of the oral tradition was strongest based from their interaction with these Chaldeans, or knowledge of knowing these Chaldeans came from Ur, and they've antiquated it much further back. Also, some cities that are mentioned in the scriptures where Abraham was at, and you know, Isaac and Jacob was at, a lot of these cities did not exist during the Middle Age period, or were not heavily populated or dense during these periods of time. Again, the time period in which they were was a much later period. So this goes to show the oral tradition that's being recalled through the social memory that is then later on penned down, that over successive amounts of time, the alignment with certain things may be slightly off, simply because people who are writing it are basing it on what information was available to them at that time, from the people that were around. And because Israel went into so many various captivities, I mean, you know, a lot of influences came into the text. But the good news is, when you apply a rigorous methodology to studying the text and comparing it to other manuscripts and comparative cultures, and looking for antiquated words in the text and idioms in the text and style and prose and poetry, and be able to analyze these things, you can reconstruct what elements are much older and which elements were much later. And you can tell, even by looking at loan words, what influenced the writers at certain periods of time. One of the lectures that I still plan on doing, that I mentioned to you guys, is showing you the frequency of the usage of Egyptian words in the Torah, to help validate that whoever lived there at that time was aware of the material culture and able to express it in non-material cultural literature. And the way that that could be done is that that individual, those scribes, had to reside in that region or had intimate knowledge of that region in order for them to recollect certain terms for things that are in the material culture that would have only been known to people who lived contemporary to that time period. That's extremely important. So we can look at these things and date these periods. But again, the book of Genesis itself, and a compilation in which it was put together, a lot of that was done during Babylonian captivity, and was revised when the Israelites was, or the Yahudim, came back to Jerusalem. And you can see, again, like I said, you can see by looking at the similarities in which the influences that they drew on in order to put together or recollect as much as they can the oral tradition from the social memory that they had while they were in captivity. Okay, but some elements of it can be antiquated at least to 1200 BCE, or the Iron Age 1 period. As far as the writing of it, orally, it could be much older than that. This is what they were saying. The language of biblical Hebrew could be much older than that, but the actual writing itself, you know, dates at least to the Iron Age 1 period. All right. All right. So shalom to my brother is a Zaya in the building. Jamali Lewis, email me. Let me see what I can do to help you out with that. Be mindful of time. All right, so just email me out. All right. I'm gonna see what I can do to help you. Okay. Okay, Jesus Christ is back. What up, Jesus? I text you, you ain't answer. So it is what it is. Ben BZ says, Shalom, is the adversary in the book of Job Hashatan. So Hashatan, just Ha is the definite article that precedes the noun Satan or Shaitan, and that just literally means adversary. It was an entity. We don't know the entity's name. And from my perspective, there were several Satans in the text. It was not just one. So what is the proper name for the Satan that was in the book of Job? I don't know. I can infer, but I don't know because there's no textual data for it, right? So I'm not sure what that entity is, or the name of that entity is. So I mean, it's not Lucifer. Lucifer doesn't exist. But there's other entities that can be attributed to that. So I don't know what Jesus Christ is talking about, but all right. So the 12 will recompense says, is reincarnation in the Bible? It depends on how you see reincarnation. Like, is a person's soul placed back into another body, or is the essence or the pneuma, the spirit that made that person who they are, their personality, their characteristics, their mannerisms, can those things be reanimated into somebody else for another purpose? Well, the layman did not believe in reincarnation. But in regards to prophets, that was something that was believed, that certain prophets had a swag to them, if you want to say, and that swag element was lifted off of them and placed on other prophets, right? Or what's called the mantle. We see that with Elijah and Elisha. We see that also when we talk about Yachanan, you know what I'm saying, the Baptist, right? Yahusha says that, you know, I'm telling you right now that this man that you're looking at, this is Elijah, the one that's to come. I'm like, what are you talking about? So the what we call the pneuma, or in the Greek, or we call in the Hebrew, the ruach, the essence that was placed on them to perform the assignment that was given to them, they conformed to it. So that same essence was then transferred off of them onto another Nabi, all right, Nabi, another prophet, right? What? Okay, I don't know what this guy, Jesus Christ, is saying. You're not really discussing anything as it pertains to the subject matter. So, Jesus, I'm going to put you in timeout, all right? So, time to go to your corner, all right? If you keep it up, Jesus, I'm going to kick you out of my chat, all right? So, Jesus Christ, chill out, all right? Chill out. All right. So that's my position on that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put the link in the chat if anybody wants to join in, and we can have a further discussion. 15 minutes, and then I'm out of here. I'm gonna make this session pretty short this time because I didn't really come prepared with anything. And the person I wanted to have a dialogue with said give him 2 weeks. So he wants to debate me, right? So just so y'all know, he wants to debate me. This is a Hebrew Israelite who believes that Yahusha is Yah. He believes in the virgin birth of Yahusha. He believes Yahusha is God, or he is Yah. And I guess he has an issue with me because I subscribe to the Syriac Sinaiticus palimpsest, right? And I mentioned that in my lecture that I did called Baptized in the Tradition of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. But I think he's getting that confused with the Alexandrian text type Sinaiticus. And that's a different manuscript. One is Greek, one is in Syriac. And he says that me and James White believe the same thing when it comes to the Bible or something like that. I don't know what this guy's talking about. But I'm definitely going to shout out his name. So that way, you know, I'm not just talking. But the brother's name is Maxwell Goldberg. All right. He's on Facebook. And he wants me to have a discussion with him. What day he said? He said he want me to do it on October 5th, which is 2 weeks from yesterday. Today's Saturday morning. And he wants to debate me on October 5th. So, I mean, I'm not going to prep for anything until October 4th. He told me to bring my A game. I'm not bringing my A game. I told him at best I'll bring my B- game, right? C+, B-. Not bringing no A game, especially definitely no A+ game. And I'm only gonna study, I guess, on October 4th if I have time. If not, then I'll just freestyle with him on October 5th. So he just challenged me. He challenged a lot of people, and people just ignore him, right? But I said, no, I'm gonna give the brother an opportunity. He wants to put forth his information. He can put it forth, and we'll just dice through it. I mean, it's surgical to me, So he can definitely give him an opportunity. I ain't got no problem with that. Hey, it's cool. Now I don't know if he's going to show up. I know people say, "Oh, don't waste your time," this and that. But I'll give him some time because there's a lot of information that I'll bring out. So when I have these discussions, there's information that I normally keep like cards in my sleeve that I pull out when I have these type of discussions. So it's never going to be something in which you're not going to learn something or we can't learn something. And I'm open to learn something from him. Maybe something he may share with me that I might learn from. But definitely he's telling me that he needs 2 weeks to practice. And I'm like, yo, let's go live right now. He's like, nah, I don't want to go live right now. I'm like, okay, you need 2 weeks to practice. So he's been obviously from what he's saying, been studying me for a long time, but he needs 2 extra weeks of practice. So that way he can debate with me or have a discussion. I'm just like, all right, like, I mean, it's all good. So, I mean, we're going to see. We're going to see. So like I said, I'll bring the B- game, C+ game. And most of it's going to be freestyle. I always have the references on deck. So when people say stuff, I just go straight to a reference and I build off the reference. You know what I'm saying? And also I use the crap test for their references because my references pass the crap test. And I'll look for logical fallacies. I know maybe about 25 of them offhand. And then I have a chart that gives me like 50, 60, 70 different logical fallacies. And I know some of the main ones that's used by people who want to argue and debate. And I also know the rules of engagement for debating as well. So that way I know how to structure the flow of the discussion if it ever deviates or whatever the case may be. So I just want to make sure that he's prepared. He said that he'll be prepared on October 5th. He said he want to give me that work. He said that he's going to bring out the big guns for me, So I'm like, all right, hey, no doubt. No doubt. So we're going to see. We're going to see what that's about. Yeah, he's saying he be saying some off the wall stuff, man. It's going to be really entertaining. I'm going to say at the very least, entertaining. He said he got to go back and rewatch my videos, prepare his game. So, by practicing and looking for holes in my videos. That's going to be a lot of information I go through because, a lot of my videos are hours long. So, I mean, if he's going to take time to watch hours and hours of material on here, I'm definitely going to give him an opportunity to have a discussion, right? But I just want to see how meticulous he is and how particular he is. And I just saw him and said, hey, let's join in tonight. Let's have a talk. He was like, he said, no, thanks. I need to be well prepared for battle. You're on every week, October 5th, on the validity on the codex that doesn't mention Yahusha rising. So he's talking about the Syriac Sinaiticus palimpsest. So he thinks that I hinged an entire doctrine off of one manuscript. This is going to be interesting. It's definitely going to be interesting because I got a lot of information on that. When we talk about the historical resurrection and how it was perceived by various individuals and so forth. We're going to get into that. There's different ways in which, it was believed on how he rose. Did he rise bodily? Was a different body prepared? And that different body was the one that actually interfaced with them. What did they believe during that period? We talk about the ante-Nicene period. What was believed during that period of time? Even in the 1st, 2nd century, what was believed? What was the different sects and groups that was around, and what was their take on this? So if he wants to get into that, I got several books that touch on that. And, hopefully he's read these books. It's not enough to just watch my videos. You got to go back and look at the references that I cite, and you got to read that material too. So if he's going to do all of that in 2 weeks, I'm definitely going to give him an opportunity to have a discussion. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Like, the brother is dedicated and devoted. So he, I'm definitely going to give him, some time to do that. Why not? But I mean, he's woofing. And that's the thing. Like, I don't like to brag because I don't believe I'm the best teacher on the planet. You know what I'm saying? I teach from what I know. If I don't know, I say I don't know. I'll go back and research and learn it. But I'll tell you one thing. If I don't know something, you share something with me, I'm going to go back and thoroughly research it and come back and say, okay, I know it now. but I'll admit if I don't know. And if he just thinks that he has some kind of information that's going to blow me out the water, I just simply want to see this. That's why I'm saying I want to definitely give him, you know, an opportunity to do that. So now we got Satan in the chat. Satan, what's going on, bruh? Really? So Satan, I'm gonna put you in a corner with Jesus, and you and him can definitely hash it out. All right. So I'm gonna put you in here. All right, Satan, you and Jesus, y'all go and you know, do whatever y'all need to do. Maybe you can tempt him or something like that, or maybe he can you know, perform a miracle or something like that. I don't know what y'all want to do in the corner, but y'all on timeout right now. So both of y'all is there in timeout. All right. So anyway, let's yo, you can't make this stuff up, man. If Jesus and Satan is showing up to this platform, you know it's something well worth watching. So I'm definitely just I don't know, I'm just enamored by the fact that they decided to come from wherever they're doing to join this chat. So that's what's up. All right, so October 5th is the date he picked, and he wants to have this discussion. He wants to market it and everything like that. So, you know, it's all good. We'll have the discussion. Like I said, I'll bring out some information for those of you who may be interested in that. And we can go a little deeper into that. All right. So, all right, family. So I'm about to get off of here so I can salvage some more time. I know this session is pretty short. And that's the way I really would like it to be. But I mean, if anybody wants to jump in the chat, I'll send you the link real quick before I sign off. Yeah, I posted it in the chat. The name of the guy that wants to debate me is Maxwell Goldberg. See, I don't like to really say that because if I put somebody's name out there, mad people will be in his inbox and hounding him, and you know. But I mean, his name is Maxwell Goldberg, and it's not. And the reason why I'm putting it out there because he already challenged me to the debate, and he already got in his mind it's going to be done on October 5th. So that's why I'm putting his name out there, Maxwell Goldberg. All right, that's the guy's name. All right. I appreciate that, my brother Bezalel Yisrael. Yanib said thoughts on the 2/3 doctrine real quick. As far as the ones that will be redeemed by Yah, placed in the wilderness, 2/3 of them are going to rebel. They're going to be purged, and 1/3 is the ones that's going to be restored back to the land when the kingdom is reinstated. So that's that. All right. Yahuchanan ben Yehuda says, I know of him. Oh, you do? Oh, okay. Well, if you know of him, that's even better. Definitely give him a call. Let him know that it's going down. And let them know that don't back out. That's all I got to say. Just don't back out. I'm definitely not going to be studying, so he has an advantage. Definitely not going to be studying. Like I said, I'll probably do it all the day before. So I'm definitely not going to be studying. But I mean, you know, if he wants to go over hundreds of, you know, hours of video and read all this material on the subject matter, you can go ahead and do it. Definitely can go ahead and do it. But I think he says he's gonna make a flyer. So I'll probably show it next Friday. If I don't, I'm gonna have to get back to teaching this class. I just had a lot been going on. So I gotta get back to teaching my class. So those of you students that are in this class that I have, I apologize. Me and my staff, a lot of things been going on, such people preparing for feast days and stuff like that. So it is really taken away from my preparation for the class. And you know, all this work that I've been doing recently has really been wearing me out. But I will pick back up on that class for the students that have been hand selected for the class that we have. So definitely going to bring that back for y'all. All right. Did our ancestors keep the holy feast days in Babylon during their captivity? That is an excellent question. I'm trying to recall, where did I see this information from? The short answer to that is yes. The long answer to that is the extent at which they did it was not the same as they did it in the sovereignty when they were in their own land, right? A lot of them acculturated, which means a lot of their beliefs and stuff, they kept them, but at the same time, they were influenced by the beliefs of other groups that were there as well. So we know Israelites did some of them did continue to keep their feast days outside the land. Another great example of that would be the Elephantine Papyrus that was written in Aramaic, and it's believed that the mercenary enclave that was there were individuals from Samaria or the northern kingdom, and we know that they have wrote letters to Jerusalem trying to get instructions to ensure that the Pesach that they were keeping in Elephantine Island was accurate, right? So they were practicing it outside the land. You know what I'm saying? So do you think it's possible to do miracles as the prophets did? I'm sure it is possible. And what it will take to perform those miracles is even more complex. I'll probably discuss that one day because I do believe it's possible. But what it will take for a person now to do something like that on behalf of Yah, not any other entity, but on behalf of Yah is a little bit, it's a bit more complex. And that's pretty much based on the lobotomy that was performed on us. The spiritual and mental lobotomy that was placed on us has disconnected us from that realm where we cannot derive that. I don't like to use the word power, but we cannot derive that capability to perform that. And you have to be selected by Yah, chosen by Yah, singled out by Yah to do that. You can't just say, oh, I believe, and thinking you're going to go and do these things, right? It's a complex process, and you have to do some reverse engineering to get back to being capable of doing that. But even when you get to that point, if you have not been hand selected by Yah to perform it anyway, then it's just not going to happen. So that's that. Just a normal Hebrew Israelite guy. Shalom to you as well. Between the lines, shalom. Ikwan, I sing shalom. Anytime. Shout out to John Doe in the building. What is the name of that papyrus again? You talking about the Elephantine Papyrus? Yeah. Let me show it to you. I'm gonna show it to you right now. All right. So this is it right here. Let me bring it up. There we go. So this is the Elephantine Papyri in English, 3 Millennia of Cross-Cultural Continuity and Change by Bezalel Porton, all right? By E.J. Peel is the publishing lead in New York, 1996. So here, get to the Aramaic text right here. See, Aramaic text. And as you read through them, you get to B13, which is the Passover letter from 1419 to 1418 BCE. All right. And this is where the request for the instruction for Passover was being done from Elephantine Island to Jerusalem. Okay. So there's a lot of things, good information you get just by reading this. You know, also when you look at the Yahoo priest that was on Elephantine Island, and it was beefing with the priests of Canaan on that same island. Their temple was destroyed, and they tried to get resources from the government to rebuild it. It's really interesting when you go back and study that. Even when you look at the prefix to these letters, it gives you some backdrop information on that. Okay, so let's get out of that. Okay. So, Yasar, I don't know if that question's for me. How much reading do you do a week? I don't know. I read a lot of stuff every week. So I can't even say how much I read a week. I try to go through at least 10 books a month. 10 to 15 books a month. But I read a whole bunch of stuff. Like I can't read a book all the way through because my mind is in a million directions. And I'll read something in a book, it'll lead me to another book. And I start reading that book, it'll lead me to another book. So it takes time for me to really finish books. But I do complete them. It just takes some time. And during that time, I'm researching like a million things at one time. You know what I'm saying? And trying to commit it as much to memory as possible. All right, did I put the link in the chat? I don't know. Let me do it real quick because I'm about to get off of here, family. I know it's a short session today. I'm not really talking about nothing exciting or anything like that. Except for this bait, October 5th. This is the bait. Somebody's really going to give me that work. Really going to give me that work. So I'm really anticipating getting that work. All right. But, I mean, some people think it's much easier until they actually get in that ring and they see, damn, this is not what I signed up for. It's like, I thought it was much easier, you know what I'm saying, from the comfort of my couch. And then you sit them down and you talk with them and it's like, oh, you know what I'm saying? You think you can win that debate? Are you talking about the one with Maxwell? I'm not even debating him. If he's coming to debate, then okay. But I'm not even debating. Like I'm just gonna be talking. I'm just gonna be freestyling. Like I'm not even debating. Um, I know people who are formidable. And I can say, you know what, man, that person is formidable. I know I'm gonna have to be in my P's and Q's, my A plus game in order for me to have a discussion, let alone a debate with somebody. So there's people that I know that if I was to encounter them and we was to have a discussion and debate, I'd have to be sharp. And then there's people where I'm just like, and the thing is, I'm not picking these fights. People are picking these fights with me. I'm not picking these fights with nobody. They're picking the fights with me. So I'm just like, all right, well, all right, let's do it then. You know what I'm saying? Or sometimes, I mean, a lot of people challenge me, just like there's a lot of people that hit me up and give me compliments, and I'm like grateful for them. There's also people that hit me up and say, oh, I disagree with this, I disagree with that. Oh, I want to debate you on this, I want to debate you on that. People that hit me up encourage me, give me also share information with me, reach out to me. Hey, how you doing? How's the welfare of your mind, your spirit, this, and that. There's people that actually care. And there's people that don't care anything about that and they just want to debate. You know what I'm saying? Or they just want a discussion, or they just, want to get on my platform so they could be known. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of times I just ignore that stuff. You know what I'm saying? I just ignore that stuff. And but my thing is, hey, if he, wants to have a discussion, you can have a discussion. Hey, no problem. I didn't pick this fight. He picked the fight. And he's talking like he about to give me that work. So I'm like, yo, let's do it. You know what I'm saying? I want him to give me that work. So I'm gonna give him an opportunity to give me that work. All right. So y'all, the link is in the group, man. If anybody wants to join in on the panel real quick, definitely click on the link, sign in to Google, and get on this on the chat. If not, I'm about to end this session in a few minutes. All right, family. So definitely, I need to just unwind. I had a long day. Just need to unwind a little bit, but I know a lot of people look forward to this session. What I can do to end y'all out, let me end y'all off with on a high note, right? On something positive, right? So let's get something positive for you. I want to keep y'all encouraged out there. And remember, you can go to my channel. You'll see that we have a playlist there for anybody that needs any kind of messages of encouragement, edification, empowerment, etc. You know what I'm saying? There's a playlist. Matter of fact, let me show you the playlist real quick. Let me show it to y'all real quick. Let me show you the playlist. Where's it at? All right, the playlist is, here it is. All right, so I put the link for the playlist in the chat. So if anybody needs to be encouraged, we got you. We got you. Definitely got you. Also, I will be in South Carolina in November. I will definitely be in Lynchburg, South Carolina in November. All right, so if anybody is in South Carolina, you want to come through, I'll have the flyer whenever they put the flyer together, and I'll share the flyer on here, and I'll give you all the details. But I'll definitely be speaking in Lynchburg, South Carolina. I've never been to Lynchburg, South Carolina before. It'll be my first time going there. But if anybody is in South Carolina, please come through to Lynchburg, South Carolina. I think it's the first or second weekend in November. It's going to be on a Friday and a Saturday. But I'll give you all the details as soon as they put the flyer together. So anybody in South Carolina, I'll be in Lynchburg, South Carolina. All right. Also, I'll be in Chicago soon, sometime this year as well. I'm going to a lecture in Chicago, so I'll be in Chicago as well. All right. So if anybody out there is in Chicago and Chi-Town, holla at me, and I'll give you all the details. And you know, y'all can catch me out in Chicago as well. So I'll be there soon. So Chicago and South Carolina, and I'll be there in the next couple of months. All right. All right. I don't know what he's talking about. What? Man, it was water, but he got burnt too. Chick named Brenda. She's into the oral tradition. All right, Yoel. See you there, family. I'll give you those details as well. Would love to meet you there, man. My sister Navia, same to you, sis. When we get to the Chi-Town, we'll let you know, and definitely you can holler at us and come through to the event that we're going to. All right. So nobody's jumping on the link. So I'm about to leave out, but like I said, I want to give y'all a word of encouragement before I bounce. I don't know what just a normal Hebrew Israelite guy is saying. I'm not sure what he's saying. He said she got baptized and damn near got pneumonia. What water was she baptized in? You know, because you know I deal with the health tip too. The next health seminar that I'm going to produce for free is going to be one that's dealing with asthma, so you can understand what asthma is. And pneumonia can contribute to bronchitis. Asthma is a different condition. Sometimes bronchitis and asthma can be mistaken for one another. But if she did almost catch pneumonia, she's probably baptized in some stagnant lake somewhere that had the pneumococcus. Now, that word pneuma means breath, right? So she's probably baptized in a stagnant body of water that had all types of bacteria festering in there. And that's probably why she probably got pneumonia. Interestingly enough, when baptisms are done, they're done in living water. What is living water? Water that is moving, because you have a less frequent occurrence of stagnant bacteria that can cause those type of diseases in water that is moving. If the water is stagnant, you don't get baptized in it. Now, it will be some exceptions. Like, for example, when we go look at, because remember when they was the apostles baptized by the Jordan River, but you'll also see when you look at the Qumran community, they did have areas where they did mikvahs at, where they would just wholly immerse somebody in water. But the water that they used there was always fresh water that they would pull into there and water that they will pump out, right? Or they will allow it to dry up before they put new water in. And that would definitely be pulled not from rainwater. It will be pulled from a tunnel or aqueduct that they would, you know, take the water from a hot spring, and then they would drive that water to that area, and they would fill it up, and then they would do their baptisms that way. So a lot of them didn't get sick, because if you know anything about a hot spring, and you pump that water in and allow that water to mellow out, it's hot enough so where the bacteria that can cause you to get sick is killed off. And the water they pumping in, once they do their immersions and they either pump the water out or let it dry out completely, they're not catching pneumonia getting baptized, right? But I mean, so I don't know what she was baptized at, but I'm just saying it needs to be done in living water, all right, if you're going to be baptized. Ezekiel, what's your view on all 8 major Jewish groups having E1B1A going back 72 generations? Excellent question. I mentioned on my Facebook live stream that I wanted to get into the migration of E1B1 and have a discussion with that. I was supposed to have a dialogue with somebody, and again, he didn't hit me back or anything like that. He just disappeared. He asked me a question. I answered. I gave him a short answer. He disagreed with it and said that he wanted to have a discussion with me. I said, sure. He said, so tell me more about your position. And I gave him a whole bunch of information. He was like, oh, okay, yeah, we can still have a discussion. I guess he didn't think I knew much about DNA haplogroups and migrations connected to DNA haplogroups. But I mean, I wanted to really flex that information. But I mean, he also flaked out on me. So, yes, blackstrap molasses is also good for anybody that is low in iron. Anybody that's iron, if you have an insufficient levels of iron, blackstrap molasses has one of the richest contents of iron, free iron, and that is definitely good for that. Now, blackstrap molasses and sodium bicarbonate, some people say that that is good for shrinking tumors. Sodium bicarbonate is alkaline, and the blackstrap molasses has other properties in it. Again, like I mentioned, like iron and so others, and a lot of other trace minerals in it. And would I recommend that for killing tumors? No. I've heard accounts where that has helped, because pretty much the reason why is because blackstrap molasses is also high in sugar content. And if you study, tumors, right? And this is oncology, right? When we look up oncology, anything dealing with cancers, cancerous tumors, you'll see that they operate via a process called glycolysis, where they uptake available glucose or blood glucose and use that to fuel them, as opposed to any kind of aerobic methods of retrieving energy, right? And simply when you starve the cancer cells of any available glucose that it can intake into the body, that's the first thing I tell people who have cancer. You must cut out any excessive sugar from anything in your diet. Even fruits you must minimize, right? I would put them strictly on a alkaline water and dark green leafy vegetable fast. And there's several other things that I would recommend they can take on top of that. You want to drink some soursop tea, which is extremely important. I used to suggest, not prescribe, because I'm not a doctor, suggest what people would say apricot kernels. I don't anymore. That has a high presence of cyanide in it, and a lot of people boil it and then they drink it, and they believe the cyanide will kill the cancer tumors. There's not a lot of scientific information to support that, so I wouldn't recommend anybody to take any apricot kernels in regards to tumors. But there's several other things besides those that you can use that also help shrink the tumors. You can use reishi mushrooms, which is also believed to enhance your T cell activity. Because remember, you have NK cells, natural killer cells, that are actually seeking out any kind of anomalies in cells and destroying them. A lot of these are suppressed. What you want to do is you want to activate them so that the body's immune system can do the job for you. Also, you have cytotoxic T cells, whose job is to also destroy cells that have issues. So what you want to do is you want to encourage the body to activate these cells that have been suppressed. And because they've been suppressed, this is why these cancer cells can proliferate, and want to assist the body, right? You don't want to do the work for the body, because when you do that, the body is not trained to do it for itself. It's going to rely on whatever is available, and whatever's available in the bloodstream is going to actually do the job, and the body's not going to be trained to do it. You must train the immune system to awaken and respond. But cancer cells Also, they turn off oncogenes. When you study oncogenes, then you can understand what it is that I'm talking about. But certain activities of the immune system are shut off when people have cancer proliferating in their body. And again, this doesn't happen overnight. This happens over time. Children can be born with a weakened immune system. Something in the environment can actually contribute to that. But there's a lot of research in it. But the blackstrap molasses and sodium bicarbonate, again, that is something that is not fully backed by any kind of blind, any kind of placebo, double-blind placebo case studies. And again, anytime I derive any of my solutions is based on scientific data that's been formed in a lab and outside the lab, in vitro and in vivo. And if we cannot prove that with a control group and a placebo group and show the objective results from that, then it's going to be very difficult for me to recommend that or suggest that to anybody. But again, naturopathic eating, this is what we do. We're a naturopathic health consultation program. We offer this service to the community at a low cost. And if people want these type of consultations, one-on-ones, we do them as well. We put you on a regimen, 90-day regimen, so we can bring you back to a holistic, Edenic state. That's the objective of it, right? But anyway, all right, so I'm about to go, family. Anybody else that wants to contact me, if you have a question or anything like that, here's the email address. Again, I'm still going through the emails. So give me some time. If I have not responded to you yet, I'll get to you. Eventually, I will get to you as soon as I can. But there's the email address. If you have any other inquiries that you want to ask me about and things of that nature, I'll be sure to do that. Shout out to Sirius B in the building. Anybody else that want any last minute shout outs, hit 1. I'm gonna leave y'all with a message real quick. So let me go ahead and pull up this message for y'all. So I can leave y'all with this message here. Let me go ahead and get it. All right, so let's get to let's go to Debunking, right? Debunking 31:19. And I wanna point something out with that. Actually, we should probably get the entire chapter. All right, so let's go to Debunking chapter 31, verse 14. And it says, Then Yah said to Moshe, Behold, the time for you to die is near. Call Joshua and present yourselves at the tent of meeting that I may commission him. So Moshe and Joshua went and presented themselves at the tent of meeting. Yah appeared in the tent in a pillar of cloud, and the pillar of cloud stood at the doorway of the tent. Then Yah said to Moses, Behold, you are about to lie down with your fathers, and this people will arise and play the harlot with the strange gods of the land into the midst of which they are going, and will forsake me and break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day. Hold on, let me show y'all. Let me show this to y'all. Hold on. Try to say something. Just keep looking at me. All right. All right. Then my anger will be kindled against them in that day, and I will forsake them and hide my face from them, and they will be consumed. And many evils and troubles will come upon them, so that they will say in that day, Is it not because our power is not among us that these evils have come upon us? Pay attention to this, family. Pay attention, because if we out there subscribe to the notion that we are the descendants of the ancient Israelites. This is extremely important to know, that the Most High knew in advance that we will play the harlot after other strange deities, right? He says, then his anger will be kindled to the point where the people will say, is it not because our power is not among us that these evils have come upon us? But I will surely hide my face in that day because of all the evil which they will do, for they will turn to other Elohim. Now, therefore, here's the important part right there. Now, therefore, write this song for yourselves and teach it to the sons of Israel. Put it on their lips so that this song may be a witness for me against the sons of Israel. For I will bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, which I swore to their fathers, and they have eaten and are satisfied and become prosperous. Then they will turn to other entities and serve them and spurn me and break my covenant. So when Yah has given you plenty, we eat to the point that we're full. And like we see in the book of Proverbs, we'll say, well, who is this power? Who is he again? I don't know who he is because I'm comfortable. I don't need him, right? This is what tends to happen with us, with the cares of the world, with increases in regards to revenue or income. When it comes to other responsibilities, what tends to happen is we start going after the strange Elohim in other ways, unbeknownst to us, and therefore perils befall us, where it seems as if Yah has hid his face, and or that we question, is he even amongst us? He says, then it shall come about when many evils and troubles have come upon them, that this song will testify before them as a witness, for it shall not be forgotten from the lips of their descendants. For I know their intent, which they are developing today, before I have brought them into the land which I swore. So Moses wrote this song the same day, and taught it to the sons of Israel. Now, this right here is extremely, extremely important. One thing I want to share with you guys is, if you want to know what are some of the earliest texts that we find in the scriptures, and those would be the songs are one. Now, the reason why this is important is because music is a great tool to help you to zakar, to help you to remember. And what happens is, a lot of times we're able to sing songs, rap songs, or whatever the case may be, that we recall and we remember, but we don't realize the influence that these songs have, where these songs can even testify against us. The song in which the Most High gave to Moshe to give to the children of Israel and their descendants was designed to be a testimony against them, just like the same reason why the book of the law was placed on the side of the ark, to be a testimony against Israel when they don't follow it. Why is it a testimony against them? Because it says choose life or choose death, choose the blessing or choose the curses. And if you go out there and you do the things that you're not supposed to do as a collective, you will be consumed, you will be destroyed, you will be overtaken. As a collective, individually, you can rise above it. Why? Because once you know the testimony that's against you, you're given the opportunity, because Yah is gracious, to say, you know what? I have failed, to repent, to shuba, repent, turn from that, and follow the statutes, laws, and commandments so that you may live. But if you don't remember it, you need the song. You understand how powerful music is. And that the children of Israel will forget. But when they remember this song, they'll be able to identify why they're in a condition in the end, and it will testify against them. So this is why we have to be mindful for what we put into our minds, because they can testify against us. Music, songs can testify against us. The most important thing is to have a song in our leb, the heart, the center of us, that will allow us to reflect the goodness of Yah, his laws, and the blessings that we reap from keeping those laws, but also the curses we face. And when I say curse, I mean misfortunes that we encounter when we disobey. That's why Shema, here with the intent to obey or to guard, if it's in the PL stance, it's intensified, is extremely important. And you must guard these devarim, these words. And if you guard these words with your lip, then you will be rewarded from Yah. And the rewards that you will reap will be something that will surpass your reality. And only those who are inclined to understand what that entails will be the ones that you see that they may not be happy, but they may be joyous with content because they understand what the entire scope of this walk is about. And it takes time to get to that place. So some songs that you can read in the text, the book of Psalms is songs, right? But I want to put you on to something. Like I said, one of the most antiquated parts of the Torah are the songs and the blessings and the statutes, the laws, and the commandments. The songs, the blessings, and the statutes, law, and the command. These things can be antiquated to be more ancient than everything else that we read in the text. So let me give you a song. Songs is good. We're going to go to Exodus chapter 15. Remember, when I brought up Exodus 15, when I was going over that book I showed you earlier, Exodus 15 is the song of Moses and Miriam. And what I will exhort the family to do is to go back, and I want you to actually read Shemot chapter 15, verses 1 all the way to verse 18. And what this song, and this is a song, right? The way it's structured, you can tell. If you have a critical edition Bible, you see how it's structured. This song will help to remind the descendants of the ancient Israelites what Yah has done for their ancestors and how much greater he can do for you if we are in alignment with the covenant that they had with him, and if we keep these mitzvot as much as we can in captivity, the ones that we're capable of keeping. Some of them we can't because we just don't have we're not in our land. We don't have the Levitical priests available, and we don't have the temple itself. But then there's other laws that pertains to us that has nothing to do with those things, that are everlasting. Doesn't matter what's going on. It's perpetual. But this song will help to bring to your remembrance the greatness of Yah and the awe and what he put our ancestors in, that today, if we recall this, Zakar, if we remember this, and when you look up the word for male, when you go to the book of Bereshit, the earliest usage of it comes from the word Zakar, which means to remember. So it is the man's responsibility to remember the wonders of Yah and to remind the family and the community to get in order. And then everything will follow suit. Go back and read Shemot chapter 1, verse 18 as your Shabbat lesson. And then once you read it, point out the various things in it that you can identify with by extracting the principle and applying it to your reality today. And once you do these things, you ask yourself the question, if Yah can do that for my ancestors then what will it take for me to activate that same power in my life today? It's still available for you. Okay. All right, family. So with that, much love. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Thank y'all for joining in. I appreciate y'all for joining. I'm gonna definitely check y'all out. Azaziah Ban Yahawada. What do you? I don't understand what you're saying, Ak. What do you mean? Let me know. I'm not sure what you're saying, but so thank y'all for joining in. I hope y'all are enjoying your Shabbat. Those of you who are keeping the Shabbat on today, enjoy it. Be safe. Like I said, I'm gonna try to stir something up for y'all next week. If I don't have a Freestyle Friday next week, it's okay. I need to play catch up on the classes that I'm teaching. But definitely October 5th, I've been challenged to a debate. So hopefully y'all show up for that. Those of you who are on Facebook, I will definitely have a flyer will be out with that discussion. I will do a video on here and show y'all the flyer, give y'all a heads up for the debate, so that way you're there on October 5th. Hopefully this person doesn't flake out. This has happened too many times over the past year. Hopefully he doesn't flake out. He said he's gonna give me that work. He said he got some missiles for me, so whatever that means. So I definitely want to, you know, have a discussion with him and see what that's about, because I definitely may need to be schooled on this subject matter. But anyway, I appreciate y'all for watching. Thank y'all so much. Much ahab or love to the family that's out there. I pray that y'all will keep y'all, comfort y'all, and protect y'all as y'all depart from this broadcast. And you know, if anybody needs to get in touch with me, hit me up. kingdomharbinger@gmail.com. Shout out to Malaya that's watching this right now. Malaya, we see you. Special shout out from Divine Prospect and Kingdom Harbinger Ministries family. Thank you for watching so much, Malila. Hopefully your father is breaking down some of the information in here to you. If it's a little bit over your head, I know Brother Azaziah is always checking this broadcast out. But much love to you, Malila. Thank you so much for watching. We love you. We appreciate you. We hope to see you next broadcast. And maybe one day I'll be able to meet, you know, you, your dad, and your family, and be able to edify each other, because I know no matter how young or old somebody may be, there's always something that I can learn from them. Malaya, I'm sure that there's something that I can learn from you. All right. So y'all stay tuned to the next broadcast. Much love, family. Shalom, peace, and I'll see y'all again. All right.